Get You Some Radio.
So stop trying to sell. Can't be about selling. It's got to be about building relationships, creating through the community relationships, through automotive or whatever your specialty is, whether it's insurance. Know who the major players are. Know who the major influencers are. Create relationships with them, and then create relationships with your customer. But stop trying to sell.
So I'm going to ask the question that every sales manager in the world 10 years ago would ask, well, but it's your job to sell. What do you mean stop trying to sell?
Because it's going to come in abundance if you stop trying to sell. You'll have more confidence. You'll be more empathetic. You'll have better relationships with customers. And then your referral base will become tremendously large, and it's much easier to sell to referrals and people you already know.
Now, your weekly dose of inspiration, perspiration, and just the right amount of bull defecation. The Get You Some Radio Show with your host, the Vice President of Making Shit Happen, Terry Lancaster.
Greetings and salutations, everyone. Welcome back to the Get You Some Radio Show. I'm your host, Terry Lancaster, and I got to tell you, I've got a guest on the show today, my buddy Mike Columbus from West Hills Honda out in Seattle, Washington. And I became aware of Mike, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago, something like that, when I first started thinking and talking about the idea of personal branding and social sales for automotive salespeople, how automotive salespeople could use social media to build their own environment, to create their own weather, to generate their own traffic. And I started following some car dealers, some car salespeople around the country. And Mike was one of the first ones that I followed. He was selling cars in New York at that time. And shortly after I followed him, he up and decided that he was going to move across the world, all the way from one end of the country to the other, from New York to Washington State. And he said, "Hey, I want to change jobs." And he did it, and he found a new job just in a matter of days because of the credibility he'd built up online. And I said, "Man, this is pretty powerful stuff." He's moving to a city where he doesn't know a single soul, got a job like that, all because of his presence on social media. So we're going to be back in a minute to talk with Mike Columbus about how social media helped him get a new job, and then how it's helped him excel at the job, building relationships, making new friends in a brand new city halfway across the world. We'll be right back with that after this.
Make more friends. Sell more cars. 97% of car shoppers say they would prefer to know their salesperson before they ever set foot in the dealership. People buy from people they know, like, and trust, and they refer their family and friends to people they know, like, and trust. Visit terrylancaster.org to learn how your sales staff can get more reviews, more referrals, and more repeat business by building better, stronger, more authentic relationships online and in real life. terrylancaster.org.
Mikey, what's going on, buddy? How you doing?
Hey, Terry, how are you?
Man, I'm fantastic. It's a beautiful day here in Nashville, Tennessee. You're in Washington State, so I assume it's raining?
No, it's beautiful weather today, nice and sunny.
All right. So first of all, when I first started following you, you were selling cars in New York, but I don't think you'd even been selling cars all that long when you got started there. Is that right?
Well, partly. I started selling cars in the early 80s after reading Joe Girard's book, How to Sell Anything to Anybody. And one of the things that struck me about that book was, one, he was out of a job and needed a job. And the second thing was, he promised the owner that he wouldn't take any customers that was already walking in the door. He created his own relationships with other people. And I thought, you know what, I can do that too. And that was what inspired me to get into the car business. And I stayed in the car business from the early 80s to the mid 90s. And then in the 90s, I had an opportunity to get into a healthcare career, which I did for the next 22 years.
Right.
So in 2010, 2011, I decided to get back into the car business. It was the business I loved. But this time I knew it was different and that it changed. And what I knew changed was how the internet impacted the industry. So strategically chose the brand, which was Honda, and strategically delve into the internet, to Google, to social networking, and started following best practice, or what I deem best practice, throughout the country.
So let me ask you this before you get started. You were looking for a dealership to go back to work for, and this is one of the things I talk to younger people or folks who are trying to get into the business about, is you need to make sure you get started in a good place. What were you looking for?
Well, I started looking at what was a good brand that I wanted to get involved with, and for me it was Honda. And actually the first job I found was through LinkedIn, and it turned out that the general manager of the store knew a few people that I knew, and through different circles. And that was how I landed the first job, which was in small town in Easton, Maryland.
Oh, yeah.
And that was a good move for me. And that's where I got started back in the car business, selling cars.
So in Easton, Maryland.
Yes.
All right. You're selling Hondas there.
Uh-huh. And then in 2015, when I met you, that's after I moved to, got married and moved to Syracuse. And so I wanted to stay with Honda, wanted to continue selling cars. And as you know, when you make moves, it can be difficult. But in this case, I was getting married and needed to move to Syracuse.
Right.
Started building the brand in Syracuse. And one winter day, it was we had 261 inches of snow in Syracuse, and I was tired of the snow. And decided, my wife's family is here in Washington, and I told her I wouldn't mind moving to Seattle, and it began from there.
All right. Yeah. So it was a purely personal decision that and you were going to move across the country to sell cars in a place. I mean, were you worried about not knowing anyone? The car business, you kind of got to know people. You know, it helps to have a base to work from, right?
No, it wasn't a worry at all, because I built a social presence. I knew people across the country. One of my notes for an action step is network with people, build relationships. One of them has to be people in the car business.
Right.
Follow best practice. And I was doing that. So I knew people all across the country who, besides yourself, followed me in this journey and gave me a lot of support and a lot of help.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. So you're now you're in Seattle, Washington, and you've built this idea of the best practices, of ways that you're going to increase your business in the car business. What are some of the best practices that you go by?
One of them is, I believe strongly in BNI, which stands for Business Network International. It helps develop us as speakers, as motivationer. It helps us get referrals. So I'm a strong believer in BNI. I'm currently serving as the vice president of my chapter here in Washington. But actually, BNI is what helped me move out here, because we had a travel agent in our group in New York. And asked her one day, what would a flight to Seattle cost me? And it was a pretty reasonable price. And I booked the flight, and it was history after that.
So BNI, for those you don't know, is a networking group, and for lack of a better word, I mean it's like Toastmasters or Rotary Club. You get together. There's a group of business people who get together either for a meal or for a meeting, and the purpose is to exchange business referrals so that you can build each other's referral network. And this is kind of a funny thing, because it's another thing that I talk about. I end up speaking at a lot of I was just, as a matter of fact, I just got home from a local business networking meeting here in Nashville, the Nashville Association of Sales Professionals, and 99.9% of the time, whether I'm in one of these meetings or I'm speaking at one of these meetings, there's not an automotive salesperson there.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever bump into any other automotive salespeople at BNI or any other Rotary Club?
With BNI, you may know this, Terry. You're only permitted one seat.
Right.
So there's only one automotive sales seat in the group. But here in Washington, in the Puget Sound, especially with our Autoplex, they encourage BNI. So all of the seats are literally filled in our BNI chapters here.
Yeah, I think it's a great networking tool. It's a great way to meet people, because every person who's at that meeting drove a car to get there. And every person at that meeting knows somebody who's driving a car who may be in the need of a car in the next 30 to 60 to 90 days or something like that. And it amazes me that more salespeople don't go to networking meetings to network.
Right. Yeah,
Why do you think that is?
One of them may be the time constraints that the dealership puts on individuals, where they're many days bell to bell.
You're right.
To some degree, I think most people are counting on the ups walking in the door.
Yeah.
And they're not looking to create their own book of business or their own group of a referral base.
Right.
So I strongly believe in creating referral partners, is what I call them. People that I know that I can call and ask, do they know anyone looking to buy a car?
And that's exactly what BNI does for you. But you said your boss, your dealership encourages people to join BNI, encourages people to get out and do the networking.
That's correct. So we have 12 different franchise stores in our Autoplex, and all of the seats in the local chapters are filled with most of our guys.
Oh, wow. So tell the folks who aren't familiar with it, who haven't done that, what that's done for you. How does that bring you business?
Well, one thing is you're required to bring referrals to other members of the chapter. So, of course, members in my chapter, I have 23 members currently, and they're constantly giving referrals. One of the other guys in our Autoplex told me he averages 30 to 40 cars just from his BNI group. So it's a pretty strong referral base for me.
Yeah. So you're getting customers just by sitting down and breaking bread with folks.
That's correct. Yeah, we meet Wednesday mornings at 7:45. Wednesday morning's my late day in, so it gives me time to network with people before the meeting and after the meeting, and exchange referrals.
All right. Tell me some other things, some other best practices that you go by for building your own book of business.
Well, the other is the social networking. So just going back to scheduling this trip to Seattle through the travel agent and BNI, I came out first week of May. And because I had a strong social presence and promoted Honda highly, my district manager for Honda had me set up with 8 different interviews here in Seattle, all with general managers. And I was really selecting the dealership where I wanted to work and where I felt I could make a difference, where I could continue my social presence, my self-branding, and where I could retire from eventually.
Yeah.
So coming out, actually the dealership where I landed was following my journey from New York out and was texting me and following me on social media, which was kind of cool.
All right.
And so the dealership that I selected was perfect for me. I thought I was going to take it easy through the summer in New York and move out in the fall, but they wanted me to start in 2 weeks. And I called my wife and told her what they wanted me to do, and she said, go.
Yeah.
So I came back, put my 2-week notice in, and moved out here to Seattle and started working.
Well, so you get to Seattle, and you don't know a soul. What's the first thing you do? How do you start meeting people, making friends in Seattle?
Well, so going back to BNI, before I had any of my interviews, I checked with BNI chapters. BNI is a group of business professionals in local communities, so I knew I could trust them. I knew I could rely on them for input. And so for all the dealerships, in fact, the dealership where I ended up working, I went to their visitors day, which they held at 7 o'clock in the morning, got their input on and their feeling of the dealership, which was all very positive. And then I went to a 9:30 interview with them. So just again, networking, social presence, having a good social presence. And again, I can't emphasize that enough. People need to look at your background, see what kind of person you are, and you don't want any hiccups along the road in your social presence.
Yeah. So what does that mean? People are researching you. People are stalking you online. Is that what you're saying?
I wouldn't say stalking me, but I communicate daily on social media. I had a customer who came in on Saturday and asked for me and said, "Oh yeah, I see your posts all the time on social media. You're the guy that was out at Snowmageddon, which we had here earlier this year. We had a tremendous snowstorm, and just you may not get an exchange the day you make a post, but if you continue to post, people are going to know who you are."
Yeah. So the biggest question I get when I'm talking to salespeople who aren't socially active, who have trouble with it, is, what do I post about? What do I talk about? What do you talk about?
I talk about cars a lot.
Yeah.
I branded myself as the Seattle Honda Pro.
Yeah.
So that's my title. That's the persona I project. I feel I know the product and the brand pretty well. I represent the brand well. So whatever I'm posting, whatever I'm doing, I know that higher ups, both at my organization, the Hazelwood Auto Group, as well as Honda's watching and seeing what I'm doing, which is good. So I like it. It helps me. And to get those shares and to get likes is very important. So it ranges. I think I have somewhat of a sense of humor. So sometimes I post funny posts. Sometimes I post serious posts. I use Facebook Marketplace to sell cars as well.
Yeah.
And then I keep a lot of my personal things in as well, just so that they see a human side of Mike Columbus.
But you're not do you have a separate business page?
I do.
You do, but you don't keep them completely 100% apart. You're doing business and personal and intermingling all of the above.
Correct. I basically have the business page for ads that I run from time to time.
Right.
I can't do that on the personal page.
And
then I also have a customer VIP page on Facebook as well.
Yeah, so that's exactly the reason that you need a Facebook business page is so you can run advertising. That's what it's there for. It's their advertising market. You use Marketplace, and that's getting to be kind of a big deal. How's Marketplace working for you, and what are you doing in there?
Every single car I've posted on Marketplace, I've sold. It's good for me. My personal philosophy is not to overload Marketplace with cars.
Yeah.
I know there's some people who are recommending 7 to 10 cars per day. That's not what I do. Yeah. I pick one reasonably priced vehicle that I think may be a unicorn and post 1 car per week and maybe 2 cars per week.
Yeah.
But every time I've posted, I've sold a car.
So a couple of cars a week is what you're posting on Marketplace. How often are you posting on Facebook? We're talking about Facebook. How often are you posting on Facebook, just from everything from Marketplace and what you're doing, daily stuff? And
probably 10 to 20 times per day.
10 to 20 times per day.
Yes.
You're posting something on Facebook, whether it's a customer review or something that you're talking about, something personal, something business-wise, something about a car, something like that.
Right. And that doesn't include engagement. I feel strongly about engaging in other people's posts. So I try to focus on local people, local groups, and just getting staying engaged with them.
Yeah.
Liking comments, making comments to comments, etc.
And what, I mean, tell the people what that does for them when you're engaging with other people's stuff.
Well, that keeps my name and presence in their group of analytics. And so they're seeing the name Mike Columbus pop up, whether I'm liking a comment or loving a comment, it keeps my name in front of them. So Mike Columbus is basically what I've branded. I've branded my website, which is mikecolumbus.net. And so everything is Mike Columbus, Mike Columbus, Mike Columbus.
So yeah, so they're seeing Mike Columbus, and they're seeing your name, and they're seeing your profile picture, and they're seeing that. But you mentioned the kind of the algorithm. There's also a programmatic reason to like their stuff, right? So that if you're liking their stuff, it's going to encourage Facebook to interact with you and keep you visible.
Correct. So that's been the goal, and that's what I try to keep in front of my mind and my presence constantly.
Yeah. And you mentioned your website, mikecolumbus.net, and tell us about that.
So again, it started and evolved me looking at best practice and seeing a few car people who had their own website, which is what I wanted. So I had a gentleman in California build the site for me. I invested in that site. And then about a year ago, I discovered Builderbrand, and Builderbrand has helped me tremendously. One of the key features of Builderbrand is I can have my inventory for all 12 of the franchises we have at our Autoplex. So I have about 2,000 new vehicles on my website. I have about 600 used vehicles. And with Builderbrand, I can, through a blog, promote vehicles and offer them for sale as well, which has helped me a lot.
So you'd paid someone to build a website, something custom, something for scratch for you, but Builderbrand, because of their ability to include inventory, turned out to be a better option for you?
Yes, but the real reason I went to Builderbrand was the content they provided. So
right.
I was looking for content, didn't have the time to write it myself. it was too expensive to use other writers, and then other writers didn't have an automotive niche to make it friendly or from a perspective of someone looking for a car person. So Builder Brand was perfect for me for providing constant content that I could keep on the website.
Yeah. So you're using social media, you're using BNI. What are some other tools that you're using to market and promote yourself?
Well, part of it is send out cards.
Yeah.
Using send out cards, but send out cards relates more to what I believe, and that is the importance of creating relationships. Just like BNI was important to me for relationships, send out cards has been important to me. Sending a card in the mail, and I have a whole process which I started at our Autoplex, which is actually part of our curriculum for teaching other salespeople of when to start in the process of customer. So I'd like to explain that if I could.
Yeah, please.
Okay. So follow-up, as you know, is very important in our industry. And so the first touch that I feel is important for a salesperson is with the person in service who is not there to buy a car. And I call them the coffee clutchers. So my goal is to talk to 3 to 5 of them a day, start building a relationship with them. And then I use send out cards to continue that relationship, where basically I'm just sending them a card with my picture, making a little paragraph that it was nice to meet you while you're in service today. And oh, by the way, if you ever need anything at West Hills, I'm your guy. And that's the first seed that I want to plant with those type of service customers. And send out card helps me do that.
Okay.
The next group of service customers, which I think is important, are the service customers who come out of the service area and begin looking at cars. They may not be ready to buy a car today, but they're a potential buyer, probably a little bit more warmer of a customer or a client than the coffee clutchers. So I'll send them a card and mention to them, it was nice to see you in service today while you were looking at that new Ridge line. And if you ever decide you want to take it for a test drive, again, I'm your guy to think about.
All right.
I use send out cards for current customers. So every customer I sell a car to, I take their picture, I send them a card, I send them a couple brownies, which is another nice feature of send out cards, that you can send gifts. So I send brownies to all my customers. And then every anniversary, I send cards along with brownies to customers who purchase from me.
So a year after purchase, you're following up with them. So
every year. So this month, May, was my 2-year anniversary. So they got two years, first year, second year.
All right.
And now I'm doing the same thing.
All right. And so you spent, it sounds like you spent a lot of time working the service lane and work, 3 to 5 customers a day. And you're sending out cards to customers on their anniversary. You send out birthday cards or anything like that?
Birthday cards, anniversary cards, anything. The dealership does a great job with birthdays. They send movie tickets and a $5 gift card for the concession stand.
Oh, wow.
I'm also a firm believer not reinventing the wheel. So, I don't do a lot of that because they're already getting something from the dealership. But anytime I can send a card, any anniversary, wedding anniversary, graduations, I'm sending a card.
So you talked about your whole concept is to build relationships, and I noticed your job description. You call yourself a relationship and marketing manager. That's your job, building the relationships.
Yes, because it's kind of evolved since been here in Seattle. That they've seen what I'm doing, how it's working for me, how it's benefited for me. So this process of these touches that I talk about and follow up. Actually, what I promote doing is part of our training process at our auto group.
Yeah. So touches, you talked about touches. How often are you trying to touch former customers and future customers?
I don't like to overdo it, and I don't want to come off as a salesperson. So I think the relationship is what I'm trying to build as often as I possibly can without overkilling. So I don't want it to seem like, oh, another card from Mike, but just stay in front of a customer, be genuine, It has to be real. It can't be about selling. It has to be about a true relationship and a heartfelt message.
And a heartfelt message. All right. Any other tools that you think salespeople around the country might be able to use, maybe that they haven't heard about, or they don't know as much about? They're not getting the training and opportunities that possibly you had.
No, but if I was to put everything into a capsule, I would say have a strong social presence, but make sure you have a good social presence. People don't want to do business with a slime ball. They don't want to do business with someone they see out drinking all the time or partying. Just have a good social presence. And that's forefront in my mind constantly when I'm posting on social media. You need a website. I feel strongly about Builder Brand and what Builder Brand's done for my business. Send out cards has been an important part. BNI has been an important part. And all of them have helped me to become tremendously successful.
So on the Get You Some radio show, we have a lot of salespeople. It's automotive salespeople, obviously, but it's not 100% dedicated to automotive salespeople. We have insurance agents and real estate agents and mortgage brokers, probably the same kind of people that you had breakfast with at BNI on Wednesday morning. And I promised them, these are all busy people. They've got to sell to eat. And I promised them that they'll spend 30 minutes a week listening to me and my friends talk about the business. We're going to give them one thing that they can do today, one action step that they can put into place today to start making their life better, to create health, happiness, and prosperity in their life, to start building relationships. Tell us one thing, if you had to sum up one thing and you could only give one idea to someone that they could do immediately to start putting these ideas into practice, where would you go? What's the one action step you'd give everybody?
Okay, I'm gonna mention it, and I'm gonna let it sink in a little bit because you may not get it when I first say it. So stop trying to sell. Can't be about selling. It's got to be about building relationships, creating through the community relationships, through automotive or whatever your specialty is, whether it's insurance. Know who the major players are. Know who the major influencers are. Create relationships with them, and then create relationships with your customer. But stop trying to sell.
So I'm going to ask the question that every sales manager in the world 10 years ago would ask, well, but it's your job to sell. What do you mean stop trying to sell?
Because it's going to come in abundance if you stop trying to sell. You'll have more confidence. You'll be more empathetic. You'll have better relationships with customers. And then your referral base will become tremendously large, and it's much easier to sell to referrals and people you already know.
Mike Columbus, West Hills Honda in Washington State. Brother, thank you so much for being on the show with us. This is all gold. I think you're going to help a lot of folks with this. Is there anything else you want to spread the word about? Anything else you want to tell the people?
No, I would say if someone wants to try send out cards, I have a website with send out cards. It's www.sendoutcards.com/Mike Columbus. If you go to that website, you can send a free card on me. And if you'd like me to show you and teach you and train you how to send cards just from your iPhone, I do it while I'm waiting for my next up to come in the door. It's very easy and very fast.
All right. Mike Columbus, brother, we appreciate you. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you, Terry. Appreciate
we'll see you next time.
All right. Bye-bye.
There we go. Easy peasy, man. 25 minutes on the dot, too. So right at it.
Thank you.
Cool. Thank you, man. I appreciate you so much. Appreciate you taking the time to talk, and I'm glad we finally were able to get hooked up. I'll spend the next couple of days editing this and getting everything plugged in, getting the webpage built up, and I'll get it out with links to you to your websites on there, and I'll make sure I tag you in it in Facebook and everywhere when I do get it posted, and let me know what I can do to help.
Well, Terry, thank you very much. I appreciate the hiccups we had in the road earlier in our relationship trying to get together for this broadcast, but I appreciate what you gave me today, the 30 minutes or 25 minutes. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you very much. And anything I can ever do to help you and your business, please let me know.
All right, brother. Have a great night. We'll see you around.
Get You Some Radio. You've been listening to the Get You Some Radio Show. Subscribe today at terrylancaster.tv to hear more episodes, win valuable cash and prizes, and get free training to help you create an army of buyers who know, like, and trust you before they've ever even met you. It's a big, wide world, boys and girls. Get out there and get you some.